everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Amanda and I am a neurodivergent woman. I am autistic, I have ADHD, I have a memory disorder called SDAM. It stands for Severely Deficient Autobiographical Memory, and I have full aphantasia, which means I don't experience visualizing in my mind or any of the other senses. I have videos on all of these topics, so if you would like to find out more, make sure you check out my playlists. This is one last caveat. This is not a medical channel. This is my lived experience blog sharing the journey of being a late diagnosed autistic woman. So today I want to talk about something called the double empathy problem. And the double empathy problem is when people with very different experiences of the world interact with one another, they will struggle to empathize with each other. And this can happen in a very variety of situations, such as somebody who is very wealthy trying to have a conversation with somebody who does not have much money or means, and they just literally are not having the same types of conversations. This often happens between allistic, which is non-autistic, and autistic people when we try to have a conversation. So oftentimes neurotypical people in general, they will do something called beat around the bush. They don't use direct communication. They will try to get to a point from an indirect route. And oftentimes they're using non-verbal cues to also say their point, whether it's their body language, their facial expressions, these things. And autistic people will often not pick up on these types of communications, and we will not understand that we're supposed to be reading between the lines of the words that they're actually saying. So this gets us into a lot of misunderstandings, and often what will happen is the neurotypical person will get upset at us and we won't understand why they are upset. And we might address some of the concerns that they originally told us about, but they aren't actually concerned about those things because they were beating around the bush. They were saying one set of things when they didn't actually mean them, to try to point to something underneath it that we just don't understand. To the point where they will finally get frustrated enough that they will finally become blunt. And it's not at that point as an attempt to communicate, but just because their frustration level might have reached a point where they now then shed their politeness and will actually use direct communication, and it'll come out more out of anger. But they are actually saying the thing that they are really upset about, which gives us the chance to go, oh, that's what the problem was. And then we will be able to, at that point, address the situation. Often by that point, the neurotypical person is frustrated. They're now upset that they got mad. They're upset that we didn't understand the first time around. And mending to the conversation can be difficult. There has to be willingness on both sides to have the communication go forward. There has to be some willingness for the neurotypical person to say, this is what I'm really upset about. And there has to be some aspect on the autistic person to have patience. And although I know we're often more patient than people give us credit for, because we're just trying to figure out what the heck's going on around in the world around us. But to try to get to the point where we are asking the neurotypical person in a non-threatening way, what are you actually upset about? And a lot of times they don't know at first. Just like a lot of autistic people have alexithymia, we don't always understand our own emotions. And so this is, again, that double empathy problem. We are speaking often in two different ways. So an example of maybe a miscommunication that could happen is, let's say a friend invites you to dinner one night, but you already not a neurotypical friend invites a autistic friend to dinner, and the autistic person already had plans. They're in the middle of reading a really good book, for instance, or they wanted to work on whatever their special interest that is that night. And so when the neurotypical friend says, "Hey, can you meet me for dinner?" and the autistic person might just with direct communication say, "No, I have plans." And if the neurotypical person asks, "Oh, well, what are your plans?" and the autistic person, again, just being factual, says, "Oh, really want to read my book tonight. I'm in a really good part." The neurotypical person might take that really personally and be like, "You would rather read a book than go to dinner with me? What's wrong?" And that's not really often what's going on. It's just that I already had those plans cemented in my head, and autistic people often don't like spontaneity or change. And so, um, if I if the person had said, "Hey, would you like to go to dinner tomorrow?" then that might give me enough chance to kind of rework my plans. But that one evening without advance notice might be too much. And it has nothing to do with the person or not wanting to spend time with them. It's just like, no, this is what I want to do. And it's not personal. It's just like, that's um, the, the, the experience that I'm experiencing right now. Like, oh, these are the plans I already made. But also to a neurotypical person, a lot of times reading a book is not considered having plans. To them, having plans is like going out and doing activities with a group of people. But for autistic people, our plans may not be that. It may be something like being by ourselves. That is a legitimate way to spend time. Um, but if the same conversation was had between two autistic people, and the autistic person says, "We want to go to dinner," and the other one says, "No, I'm reading my book," the other autistic person will be like, "Oh, okay, that's awesome." And they might ask details about what the book is. And I am very much simplifying that, of course, for demonstration purposes. And other times that misunderstandings happen in conversations are things like school assignments. So when I was a kid, the teacher would give out assignments. And because I did not understand the parameters of the assignment or what was really socially acceptable or what the teacher was expecting, I would go above and beyond, like leaps and bounds. One of the early examples of this is, I think it was sometime around second or third grade. We had a assignment where we were learning about country, and my country was Greenland. And this is one of the stories, because my memory disorder, I don't remember it, but I've retold the story enough times that I have a version of my truth of the story. And my mom has backed it up too. So I have a confidence that this is what happened. Um, I have to rely on other people's memories to know how my life went. But anyway, so it was around second or third grade, and the teacher assigned me Greenland, and I had to write a paper. And then we had to make a puppet that was dressed in the traditional clothing of that country. And at the end, we had a class party, which I don't think they do these anymore, but we had to bring in a food item from that country. And I went so leaps far and above what the teacher expected, because I don't, when we aren't given enough information, we just overdo it to try to overcompensate so that we aren't wrong. And I turned, like, I think it was like, it's supposed to be a 2-page paper. I had a typewriter at home, so I typed up a 2-page paper. So that means that my paper was way longer than all my classmates' handwritten papers because I did 2 pages typed. Nobody else in class turned in a typed paper. But because it was a final project and my mom was a secretary, like, and she was also undiagnosed autistic, we just assumed that a final grade, a big project, should be turned in typed because we had that tool available to us. Most of the kids, when I got to class, most of the kids' puppets were like paper bag puppets. Totally fine. It fit the assignment. No, I had my dad, because this before my parents were divorced, cut out wood pieces, and then I made a marionette puppet. I'll see if I can find the photo of it. I don't know. I don't know if I have access to that photo anymore. But anyway, a marionette wooden and felt puppet. And then for the food, I brought in shrimp cocktails. I don't know if that's actually, I know Greenland is like big on seafood, and maybe that's why I picked shrimp cocktails. I don't know. But let's just say, of course, I got 100 because I could not get 100. Like, I went so far above the expectations because I misunderstood what the requirements were. And this happens, like, I've seen my kids struggle with the same thing. When a teacher will give them assignment, they will go above and beyond, leaps and bounds above what is actually expected. And now, me have gone through that. Now, the fact that I went through that as a child, I've been able to kind of tell my kids, like, no, I don't think that's what they're wanting. But even then, sometimes I'm not even sure because I don't know what teachers are expecting of kids these days. I actually homeschooled my kids till 8th grade. So this is their first year in a school setting, and it's an online school. So that's even a little bit different too. But neurotypical people oftentimes don't give all the information. There's information between the lines that they are just picking up somehow that autistic people we're not receiving that level of information. Like, all the other students came in with paper bag puppets. Nowhere did the teacher say, bring in a paper bag puppet. But somehow the other kids in the class and their parents all knew that that's probably what the teacher was wanting from this project. While my mom and I came in with this, and of course, the other kids think that you're trying to be a show off when you're just trying to figure things out. It's, I had to pause because I was just getting really frustrated. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to pause and talk about my frustrations for a little bit because I don't have a memory. So I can't, I don't remember the experience of the other kids making fun of little me, who is just trying to turn in an assignment. And this is not the only one. I did this over and over and over. And the thing is, the teachers loved it because they saw a kid who cared and was excited about the assignments. But I wasn't. I did like learning, but I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing anything. And so in order to not miss anything, I did all the things. The Gifted Talented program is a pipeline to undiagnosed autistic women. I'm not saying all gifted and talented girls are autistic. There's just a lot of us coming out of the woodwork where we were undiagnosed autistic. And I have so many emotions around this. I wasn't in the Gifted and Talented program. I got invited to it, but I didn't want to because I knew how much I was struggling. I put so much more effort into every single school assignment that I ever did. And I couldn't imagine going into the gifted and talented program because it's like, oh my gosh, you don't understand all the stuff in the background that I have to do to get this A. Like, it's just, no. And so so a lot of parents are like, oh, you get invited to the gifted and talented program. And that looks like a good reflection on them as a parent for whatever reason. And so they push their kids into it. And I'm not saying there aren't kids who don't deserve to be in the gifted and talented program. I don't know. That's a whole nother subject and I'm going to talk about it, but your kids are not a reflection of you, and not every student should be in the gifted and talented program. Yes, I was smart enough, but my executive functioning skills did not, that would have put me into an autistic burnout way sooner. And I'm glad that even though I was invited, my mom didn't push me to accept it. And so I was able to, maintain my A, Bs, and a couple Cs, especially in math, because math is not my strong suit. And while I honestly would have benefited, now I don't know about back in the day because they didn't even have these kinds of things. Like if I was in special education, I would have been down in the basement at my school, which is horrible, but that's where the special ed kids were. Nowadays, kids can have an IEP and be in with a regular classroom, but have their assignments modified. And that's what my autistic kids in their online school have. They do the same work as the other kids, but they get to have more instruction behind they have time with the teacher to get further instruction, and they have other tools available to them that I didn't have access to. But this video is supposed to be about misunderstandings, and it goes both ways. Neurotypical people, we need to bring awareness of autism so that neurotypical people can have the understanding that they might be talking to somebody who appreciates and respects and needs direct and more blunt communication. And I have a video on I'm autistic, I'm not rude. There's a difference between rude and autistic, and an autistic person can be rude. I'm not saying they can't, but oftentimes we're not trying to be rude. We are not trying to say personal things. We're just trying to say things that we see as facts, which is just blunt speech. And a masked autistic person can sometimes learn how to soften it, but we're not always super successful at it, and we don't understand the nuances of all the sideways conversations that are happening around us. Whew. Just pausing a minute to see if there's anything else I want to add to this video, but I think that is good. I think we just need to bring more awareness on both sides. Autistic people need to understand that they might need to ask for more information, and neurotypical people so that they're not having to overwork. And neurotypical people need to understand that not to take things personally when an autistic person is asking for more information. One more quick really example is at my kids' Taekwondo studio. At the end, the leadership students did cleaning of the studio, and Master Matthew told my son to clean the sink in the bathroom, and my son did not know what that typically would mean. So he literally cleaned the sink, and then underneath the sink, all of the silver, the piping, he literally was cleaning the undersides of the sink. And while sure, maybe every once in a while that's something that might need to happen, that is not what the master was expecting. He just wanted him to wipe out the bowl, make sure the handles got sanitized. But that wasn't communicated directly. And so we had a misunderstanding. And then he got mad, like, why are you taking so long to clean the sink? And then my son is like, because there's a lot to clean. And he's like, no. And then it's like, oh, well, if you just wanted me to clean the basin and the handles, you should have said that. Because we don't always know what people are wanting from us. Whew. And with that, thank you so much for watching. I can't wait to hear relatable stories in the comments. And until the next one, bye guys.